that. So here's where we are right now as we move into the lunch hour, and the legislature has debated for a couple of hours that first bill and now passed it. The second bill will be coming up for a vote, and when it does, when that vote is passed, the only thing left to do is to send it over to the governor, and there's little question that he is going to sign it. So the question is, what do these protesters do then? Is it time then for them to disperse? Do they regroup somewhere else? Do they have some type of an organization beyond just being here today? Because I know that they were all down at the Lansing Center, or many of them, given instructions. Here's kind of what we're going to do. Here's what we expect. Here's what we want you to do. You were talking about the marshals who are out here, the captains who are trying to help keep order and keep things moving along. But with that final vote coming in the House, we would assume relatively soon, it'll be interesting to see what, if anything, develops. Let's talk for just a moment about what this really all means. What it means if those bills both pass is that unions will no longer collect dues from people who go to work at union shops who say they don't want to be part of a union. That is a significant change, certainly in policy in the state of Michigan, but also a significant change for unions who could stand to lose a lot of money to both organize with and also to participate in their political activity. So those are two issues that are up there, but there is also something else. It makes that the right-to-work movement that has been going around this country for some time has come to one of the most union states in the country, and consequently, in the top 25, this would be state number 24, Michigan becomes right-to-work. I know we've said it before, but it is very difficult to talk about just how improbable that seemed even a few months ago and even a few weeks ago when this conversation came up. I said a number of times that during lame duck, if right to work comes up, it would certainly be a divisive issue, but I don't think I imagined it to be exactly what it is here today, and quite frankly, I don't know if I ever believed it was going to come up.
Well, and we talked about this morning, and I have no ties to any unions. I was born and bred in Flint. 1936 was the start of the UAW, the sit-down strike. It started in early December. It lasted all the way into the second week in January. It was violent. But when you sit down and open a history book, when you're in a high school in the Flint area, that is one of the modern history lessons about that sit-down strike. You know, generations of union members, generation after generation. You get a good sense as to why these folks are so passionate about this, and a good sense of the historical perspective for Michigan, as you said.
And to that point, the minority leader in the House, Richard Hamill, was talking earlier today. His grandfather was in that sit-down strike. He is third-generation union, fourth-generation auto worker, and he's the leader of the minority. So he spoke passionately today about what this means to him and what he believes it means to the state. So these are deeply held feelings that are generational, and it's not just about today's jobs, it's about what people have done in the past and what they believe unions have brought to the table. By the same token, people on the other side think that there is a real advantage to having choice for workers that they believe doesn't exist. Let's be very clear. There is such a fundamental difference between these two sides. There is no compromise. There is no middle ground. It is one or the other. And today it appears that the one that will prevail will be the Republican view, started in the Senate last week. As quickly as it moved over to the House, they've taken it up as quickly as they could 5 days later. And it would seem that within the next hour or so, that all of the legislative work will be done, and the only thing left to do will be for Governor Snyder to sign this legislation, which would likely go into effect about April 1st. I think Brett and Emily are back in the studio. Guys, you got a question?
Yeah, Rick, we're just watching this all kind of transpire right now. This 4003 bill passed that has something to do with the public sector unions. Can you explain a little bit more here? Because there are a number of bills that are in the House right now. Some have come through the Senate, some are going through the Senate or going to this. How is this all going to work? Basically, lay it all out for us. Can you do that?
Yeah, here's what I believe is going to happen, and it could change, but I don't believe it will. I believe that 4003, which you saw that just passed, deals with the public sector unions. Private sector unions would be under Bill 116, which passed in the Senate last week. It will come up next. When those two are passed, that's it. All of those other bills, the ones I told you last week that when the House passed that one bill, that it was really kind of a test vote. You know what? Go ahead and step down because we've got a photographer on kind of a precarious perch. There we go. That one bill that was passed over in the House, as much as anything, was to show support on the part of the House of Representatives, but also to reassure senators who were about to go on the line for voting for right to work that they had the votes over in the House if they passed it, and also to put them on record, having already voted for it. So over that 5-day layover, when they were receiving all those phone calls from union supporters and union representatives that they didn't get cold feet, the vote was 52-4 in the House last week. I haven't heard yet what this vote was, but I would expect it to be very much the same. But the process that you ask about is the 2 Senate bills that passed last week, once they're approved in the House, which I expect in the next hour or two, will just simply be enrolled, and then they'll be sent over to the governor's office. Then all it takes for them to become law is for the governor to sign them, and it would happen 90 days after the end of this session, or sine die as it's called, and that wouldn't necessarily be after lame duck. Sine die, the end of the session, could come sometime after Christmas in just a pro forma session. Only a few people would come in. They would end the session, and 90 days later is when this law would go into effect.